Okay, so today we're going to talk about fragments and destructuring. So I'm going to keep working on the app we did on Monday. Uh, so in the app file, I'm going to create another component, and this is going to be a table. I'll call it table. So we need to create, I have here oops, let me just delete this, have this here from before. Okay, this is fine. So I'm going to create the component table inside the folder table.js, and this is going to be a React component. And as usual, we have to import React. Then we need to export default function table, and then return. Right. Okay, and now if we have to import this component, import table from table / table, and now it should be rendering. So there is a tag in HTML that is called table. It's quite old, but is still being quite used. So to create a table, you need to create the table like I did. Then it has at least table head and then table body. And can also have a footer, with the footer, the foot, sorry. But today we're not going to use any footers. So inside table head, we need to specify the rows we want on the head. So we do that by typing tr. And then inside tr stands for table row. We have to say how many headings we want. And that would be th. And yeah, let's call it head there, or heading. Head, let's call it head. And I want to have 3. So let's check that is rendering. Okay, so here it is. And now let's capitalize it, header. Okay, and now we are going to create the body. The body is something similar. We need to put tr for the rows. For now, I just want 1. And then instead of table heading or header, we want table data. So it's dd. And then I'm going to put just data. And because we have 3 headers, let's put 3 datas. Okay, so it's rendering, fine. So now if we want to create another row, we just do the same thing. So we just create another tr, and then inside the data we want to put. So if we check, it's working. Okay. So as you can see, this is a bit repetitive, right? So what can we do in React when we have something repeating? Hello?
Create a component so that you're able to sort of, yeah,
Yes,
so that you're not
exactly.
having to repeat yourself.
Yes, we're going to reuse the code. We only type it once, and then we render it as many times as we need. So I'm going to create another component that is going to be inside table. So let's create a folder inside table, and let's call it row. Then we need to create the file itself of the component. It's going to be row.js. And as usual, it's a React component. And then export default. And I called it row, function row, return. And then here we have div. And then inside, we are going to put the row, right? So for now, right now, it's being rendered, okay, nicely. So we are going to change that into a component. So we need to put this code inside the component. So let's do that. Okay. And now we need to import this component in table. So if we go to the top, import table from dot slash row slash row. And now we can use it. So instead of typing all this, we can just put a row and row again. Okay, much nice, nicer. So wait, I have an error, line 3. Okay, yes, because I called it table instead of row. Okay, let's create a line there. So let's see what we have now. Oh no, it's broken. What did we do here? Okay, let's see. Let's inspect it. What's going on here? So let me just undock this, or dock it, sorry. So we have, let's compare the head, the table head, and the body. So in table head, we have inside a table row. And then in table body, we have two divs. But if I remember well, before we didn't have any divs, right? So apparently this div is breaking the way it's being formatted. So we need to somehow remove this div. So when this happens, we can use something called a fragment. And this is happening because when we are rendering the component, you see, we have this div here. And in this case, we could remove it and that would be fine because it's only one. But imagine that instead of one row, I wanted to render two. And this is not going to work because React to work needs an element wrapping all the rest, right? And we don't have it here. So there is something called fragments. So the there is so this is the react.fragment. Then here on the bottom, put again react.fragment. Okay. And I have some syntax error somewhere. Oh, yes, because instead of putting it at the end, I should put it here. Okay, so now at least it's compiling. Let's format this and let's check, will it work? Oh, look, now it has the right format and the divs are gone. So basically, what React.fragment is doing is wrapping our JSX into an element, but this element is not going to create a new node in the DOM. So it's not going to create anything here. And for the browser, it is not there. So this means that it's going to keep the format that it had before. Also, this is like the long way of writing it. There is another way, a shorthand. You can just do this. And it works the same thing. So yeah, these are fragments. Any question about how this works?
Yeah, sorry, can you just explain to me why did it not work before? Why does it need to have
Yes,
fragments and what
yes,
exactly are fragments?
yes,
Just to
yes, of
clear it
course.
up again for me.
So before we had divs, right? We had a div here. So if we check here, we can see the divs are here. And in order to be formatted, to have the right format automatically, to be displayed on the way the browser, so the browser is expecting some structure. If you put the div in the middle, it's going to break that structure because now you have a div in the middle. If you check, you see, here we have the rows, which are okay. The rows are fine. But if you have a div in the middle, that's going to break it. So we need to remove it if we want to keep the format. So in order to do that, we just...
Why it breaks it? Why does it break it?
Because it's the way it works. It's the way, like, in order to create a table in HTML, to have the automatic format that it has by default, it has to follow a predefined structure. If you put a div in the middle, you are breaking that predefined format. You're, you're creating another element in the middle. So a table row should be a direct child of table head or table body or table foot. If you put it inside a div, it's going to be rendered as if it was inside a div, not inside table head or table body.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so in order to avoid that, we can use a fragment.
What's the difference between a fragment?
With
You put a fragment there, and obviously that renders it on its own. So does that mean that if you put a fragment in,
means that
each fragment is a child of
the fragment
rather than like
sorry, because it was cutting your, but the fragment is here and we are seeing it and it's visible to JavaScript, so to React. But then when it gets rendered, when it goes to the browser, it's not there. You see, there isn't any fragment here or any element in the middle. It's just a way to let React know that all this JSX goes together. Because when we need to create a component, everything needs to be wrapped into a single element. But if we don't want to display that element, because in this case, it's going to break the format, the default format of the table, we can use a a fragment. There are other scenarios when it's useful, like, I don't know, imagine you had a lot of components, and for each component you are rendering a new div each time. So you're going to end having like your code, your HTML is going to be very cluttered and difficult to read and to maintain. So if you use fragments, you're only going to render the code that is inside, not the div.
So with the div, you'd obviously be able to style it. But if you've turned it into a fragment, are you still able to style it?
Not as a whole. No, you can't do that. The only attribute that you can take, you can put in a fragment, but it has to be with the long version. You have to type react.fragment, and then here as well react.fragment. The only attribute it can take is key. For when you are doing a map, when you are doing map, you know that you need to put a key in order to React to be able to identify properly each element that is being generated by the map function. So when you do that, the way to pass a key into the fragment is this one. You can't do it with the shorthand, but that's the only attribute it takes. It doesn't take a class. If you want to style it, you need to find another way. You could use, so in this case, if we go to the table, for instance, it's you can, if you want to style all of them, you could style the t-body, for instance, and that's going to be equivalent to styling the div. Or if you want to only style the first one, you could style the first child of the t-body. There's other ways to do it. Okay, so do you have any other questions about this? No? Okay, so I'm going to move on then. So the other day we had a dota, a son. So let's go to the son. And now in the son, I'm going to create an object, and I'll call it let son. And it's going to be or some data, some details. And it's going to have an object that is going to be name. And inside this object, we're going to have first. And it's going to be, I don't know, Aaron. And then last. And it's going to be Luis. And then also we're going to have the age. And it's going to be, I don't know, 32. And now I want to display this. So I want to say, I am the son. Let's say I'm a p tag. And I'm going to say the son or son's name is, and now we're going to put the name, so some details, sorry, some details dot name dot first without space, then space here. So again, some details dot name dot last, and let's say, and he is, let's say, some details dot age and alt. Okay, so let's format this and let's check that it works. So let me just zoom this out. Okay, son's name is Aaron Lewis, and he is 32 old. Sorry, I'm missing the years old. Okay. And he is 32 years old. So if you check this, we are repeating a lot, right? We are repeating some details all the time. So if we want to get rid of this, we can do something like let, it's called first. First is going to be some details.name.first. So I'm going to do some details. Sorry, not this, sorry. Let first equals to some details dot first dot name. And now I can only type first, right? It's equivalent. Let's see if it works. I have an error somewhere. Let's see. What's the error now? Cannot read property name of undefined. Okay. Oh yes, because I have the wrong order here. Instead of first.name, it's name.first. Now we remove this. Yeah, now it should work. Yes, so it's working, right? We have the first name. So let's do the same thing with the last. So let last equals some details dot name dot last. And instead of some details dot name, I'm just going to type last. And then instead of some details dot age, let age equals some details dot age. And let's remove some details. Okay. So let's check if it works. It's working. Nice. So yeah, this is better, but still I had to type a lot. So if we are going to use it many times, still it's worth it. So if we had some more code and we had to use first, last, and age many times, yes, it's worth it. But in this case, still is not much of an improvement. So instead of doing this in modern JavaScript, we have something called object destructuring. So we could do let, and then if we open curly braces, and then inside, for now I'm going to just destructure age because it's easier. Age equals to some details dot age. The good thing so far there isn't much difference, even there are two more characters. But when we have more than one, we can just put a comma and destructure the next thing. So I'm going to structure first and last. But because first and last are nested, I need to do something a bit different. So I need to type name, and then inside we just put first, last. And that's it. This line is equivalent to these three lines. So now if I remove them and we check if I didn't make any silly mistakes, it should work. And I probably did a silly mistake. Okay. So let's, oh, yes, I see. Because it's not some details.h, it's some details. Sorry. Yeah, now. So if we check, it's working. So I'll do it again because I made that mistake. So we need to open curly braces. We have to declare a variable and then equals the name of the object. And then we put the name of the property we want to destructure. And now the value of this property, of the property age, that is 32, is going to be stored in the variable age. And then we want to do the same thing for this object, for first and last. But because they are nested, we can't do it directly. So we have to do it this way. Name, then we open curly braces again, and we just put the name of the variables first, like first and last, and that's it. And this line is much simpler than the previous three, right? And we have to type a lot less. This code is much cleaner. Like if we check, it's working. So do you understand it?
Yeah, it looks pretty simple to understand. It's quite intuitive. I wonder if there's any point in doing the long way, because what you've shown here, like you said, is a lot cleaner, and I think it's quite easy to understand. So is there any point in doing the long way?
No. This is completely replaceable. So if you do this, I think it's a good practice to destructure, actually. And it's something modern. It's from 2015. Well, I think it's from 2015. Maybe it's even newer than that. So yeah, also it proves that you are up to date with modern JavaScript. So yeah, definitely go this way instead of the long one. And now, if we check the props here, we see that we are doing something a bit similar, right? So I want to destructure the props. So when we have an argument, when we are the way to do it is similar, but it's a bit trickier to understand the first time. So because in the arguments we don't have this equals some details. So the props is an object, right? So if we want to destructure the object, instead of putting props there, we're going to put curly braces, and then we want to put the name of the properties we want to destructure. So in this case is daughter's choice. So let's do it. Then dinner. So here we are declaring the variables where we want to store props.doctorchoice and props.dinner. So now we can delete this. We can also delete this. And you see it's compiling. So let's check that it works. So wait, let me close this. Okay. So if you remember, the dota was going to ask the parent what to have for dinner. And then it was going to be updated in state. And then that state from the parent is going to be passed to the son. So let's do that. It was lobster. Now, if we ask this lobster, if it works, should go here because the son wants the same thing that the dot. And you see, it works. So let's do the same thing for the dota, but you are going to do it this time. So if I open the dota, so now I want to destructure the props. So what do I do?
You use curly braces?
Curly braces
instead of the props?
Instead of the props. Yes?
Yeah, and then you have to put the properties of the object. So in this case here, where is it? Let me see. So you've got set daughter on, click event target. Maybe something to do with the ask parent. I don't.
Yes. So we have where we have props dot means that is a property of the props, right? Of the object props.
Yeah.
So we put here ask parent. This is one. And what is the other one? Dinner. Yes. And now what else do I have to do?
you have to delete off the other stuff, the old stuff that you
Yes,
don't need anymore.
exactly.
So delete off the prop.
Exactly. So now if we delete it, it's compiling. Let's check that it works then. So let's do the same thing again. So lobster, I'm going to ask the parent. Yes, lobster works. And for the dinner, it was noodles. So yes, they're going to have noodles. Yes, perfect. Nice. So do you understand it? Any questions about this?
Yeah, I understand that.
Also, this can be used to destructure arrays, and the logic is the same. So, for instance, in use state, we are destructuring an array because use state is a function that is going to return an array. And then we are naming the first element of the array and then the second element of the array. So this is also destructuring. And one last thing, if you, for instance, instead of using 8 as name for any reason, you wanted to use another name, you can do that as well. But you can't just replace it. If you delete this and you put years, for instance, it's not going to work. If I try to use years, if we check, is years old, you see? It's not working. But if I want to use this property, I need to do age because it's the name of the property I'm destructuring, and then colon, and then the name I want to give, that in this case is years. So if we check, you see, now it's there. It's 32 years old. And that was it. Yeah, the only thing that is a bit tricky is when you have a nested object. But as long as if you remember that you need to put the name of the object and then again destructure it, then I think it's not too difficult. So yes.
So when you put a colon in front of it, it just tells it this is the other name that you call it. And if you only have one object, so one property, then obviously that's the only thing that's possible. Whereas if you've got obviously two, then you put it inside a curly braces. Is that kind of right?
No, look, the colon is because, so in this case, in the first case, it's because I'm renaming it. I want to call it years instead of age. Because I don't know, it's not convenient to call it age for some reason. So I want to call it years. So you can do that. But if you have an object inside an object and you want to destructure it, as we have here, you need to also use the colon. And then after the colon, you destructure the nested object. They are two different things. If you only had one, if you only wanted to destructure one, you could do this as well. But of course, here you will need to put props.first, props.name, like props, not props, sorry, some details dot name dot last, and likewise here, because it's not being destructured, right? Like this. But if I also want to destructure the nested object, the way to do it is as we did before. So if I go back, like this. There are two different things. It's a bit confusing because they use the same, both they use the colon. But yeah, or if it's confusing you, just forget about the colon here. That colon was just to change the name.
So if you didn't want to make it confusing, would you just change age to years in the objects? You know, the some details. and then you
here,
just use years. Or
yes, but
every day
sometimes.
you'll need to do.
Sorry. Yes, so sometimes you can't do that because the object comes from another source, external source. So you can't modify the name. In this case, we can do that. Yes, we can call it years, and then we just put here years as well. Yeah, that would work. Yes, of course.
But normally you don't have that freedom.
It depends. Like if you are creating the object as we are doing now, yes. But if you are getting the data from an external API and they are giving you a JSON file that is like an object, and then you are getting the property from that object, you can't do it that way. You just need to use the name they give you.
Are there any variables that are special variables that you can't use the name of?
Yes, there are like reserved keywords. Like, for instance, I couldn't call it, if I wanted years, like years now, to call it return, that's not allowed, you see? It's a reserved keyword. Or if I want to call it function, it's not allowed. I can't call it function. There are some words that you can't use for naming variables. But a part of those words you can use any word. Okay, so if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to stop recording, stop streaming. So thank you.